I think this is my most important and vital cast I've ever done from all the years I've been doing podcasts and radio shows and speeches. I hope it's not. I hope I am wrong, but I'm not often wrong. The fact that I'm even on the air today with you is a small miracle. I had great trouble getting my cast together. Usually I just send it to Andy, my title and my subtitles, and I set up the show. That disappeared. And I have no doubt, that was part of a satanically sourced throttling plan that the powers that be were trying to control. But I did get through, so I want to thank you for getting on, for putting up with me, and for listening to me. I know I sound very dramatic today, but I think I am always trying to bring you the truth as America's self-designated intelligence officer, ruthless truth, without any bias or prejudice. And I just think that today what I've got to say is probably the most important cast I've ever done. So please hope you'll like, share, and subscribe this. I'm not trying to be melodramatic. I'm not trying to get subscribers, but I appreciate all of those of you who have supported me and continue to support me. I've been very ill for the last 3 months. I'm still on the road to recovery, still on some meds I'd like to be off of. But I think that what I've got to say today is that important. Another thing that happened is my guest ghosted me. My guest was supposed to be Chase Spears, a former PAO, Army PAO, public affairs officer, who sounds like he's really for the Iran war. It sounds like, I'm not sure, I wanted to hear what he had to say, but he ghosted me as well. So the more difficult it is to do something is indicative of the resistance from evil. See this all the time. If we're doing a house cleaning or something, is the lights go out, the comms go out, the phone stop working. Yeah, that's very, very common. Yeah, I am a lot better. Thank you. Hi, Crop Man. But I'm just I'm setting the stage for what I've got to say today because it's very dramatic. And if you're on my Patreon, or my locals or my X, you're seeing what I'm going to be saying today, and I'm going to explain it in detail. But if you don't know, I pray before every show so that it will go well and I will be able to tell you truth. But today, in a little bit, I'm going to ask you to pray with me on air. And of course, if you're in the Christ Chaplaincy, Christ Connection Chaplaincy, you see us on Sunday, but most of you aren't. But I'll tell you why first. And I'll also tell you that today's cast is so serious that I already got my family together in a circle and knelt down and prayed already because of what I think is happening. And maybe I'm wrong, and I hope I'm wrong. The problem is I'm rarely wrong. I really know what I'm talking about for the most part. But that's what I wanted to put out initially. So the title is Vital. Pray that Trump doesn't nuke Iran. And then we're going to get into why we have to pray for that. Trump's social truth that he put out, Iran's civilization likely dies tonight. Iran is a civilizational nation. America is not. America is brand new, 200 years. Iran, Persia is over 2,000 years old. And then also Trump F-bombs and mocks Islam on Easter. It's another Truth Social he put out. So this is showing instability and infestation, instability, mental instability, lack of discernment, and infestation of evil. These are technical terms. And then does the failed Iran uranium raid means nukes are next. And it's looking like that's what they're talking about. I'm going to explain all that rationally, calmly, in detail. And the successful Iran rescue was a covered up the failed uranium raid. So I think this is all going to make sense to you. I hope it does. So first, is Trump threatening to nuke Iran? What Trump has said is with an 8 p.m. deadline tonight, Tuesday night, for Iran to agree for a peace deal with the United States, Trump posted an ominous warning to the Islamic Republic saying a whole civilization will die. Trump posted on Truth Social shortly after 8 a.m. Eastern, a whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. I'm quoting Trump exactly what is written, what is posted on his Truth Social, his Twitter. However, now that we have a complete and total regime change, so he goes back and forth. We have regime change. We don't have regime change. He contradicts himself in the same speeches within minutes, where different, smarter, and less radicalized minds prevail. Maybe something revolutionary, wonderfully can happen. Who knows? We'll find out tonight. One of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world. 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death will finally end. God bless the people of Iran. So he's saying a lot there. And words matter, especially from world leaders. A whole civilization will die tonight. However, now that we have completed a total regime change, maybe something wonderful can happen. And also, God bless Iran. Well, so it's good that he's saying God bless Iran for a change, as opposed to calling them animals, which he has done, which is mimicking what the Israeli Likud, not all Israelis, but the far-right Netanyahu, Mossad, Likud Israelis have said, is the Iranians, Persians aren't humans. They're Amorites. They are meant to be wiped out. Women, children, all of them. And they're referring back to the book of Esther. This was what was happening with that crazy, not crazy, but evil, fake Christian Paula White, his advisor that has a little tiny church that Tucker just did an interview with somebody who went to her congregation, and Hegseth, and all of them, Franklin Graham. And so, hi, Cropman, I'm thinking Trump has become possessed by the devil. So I don't think it's possession. I think it is infestation. And again, the seduction of evil process, which I've talked about in a lot of my speeches and in my sermons, it begins with oppression. Barak means to bend over, to be oppressed. Everybody's oppressed all the time. But if you're focused on one type of oppression, that can lead to obsession with that. Like if I'm punching you in the arm all the time, then you'll start feeling your arm. Instead of opening up and out to God, you go inward. That's what the devil wants. You can see that in Fight Club, see that in lots of films, illustrated. The next step after obsession is actually infection with evil, and then infestation. I think for a variety of reasons, Trump's ego, and I don't know. Heaven knows, I don't know. But this is what I am discerning, assessing as an intelligence officer, as America's intelligence officer, discerning as a Christian chaplain, very experienced in spiritual warfare, done exorcisms, is that Trump is infested because of the people surrounding him. He's surrounded by Kushner, by Jewish Zionists, American Christian Zionists, Paula Weiss, Hegseth, all of them. So anyway, when I use these terms, possession or infestation or oppression, I'm not talking generally. I'm talking in a very specific, technical, Christian spiritual warfare language, a lot more so than most people are. And you should look up my sermons on seduction of evil versus sanctification by God, where I've talked about all this stuff in detail, and we practice all of this stuff. Just like all of my stuff is deep dives. I've criticized Huckabee and Tucker both for not even failing to look up the quotes, the misquotes that they are quoting from Genesis 12:3, for example. So when Trump says, and again, I'm going to read this again, so it's so important. This is from Donald J. Trump at Real Donald Trump on Truth Social, which is Trump's Twitter that he established because he went off Twitter, if you remember. A whole civilization will die tonight, never to be brought back again. I don't want that to happen, but it probably will. However, now that we have a complete and total regime change where different, smarter, and less radicalized minds prevail, maybe something revolutionary, wonderful can happen. Who knows? That's capitalized. We'll find out tonight. One of the most important moments in the long and complex history of the world. 47 years of extortion, corruption, and death will finally end. God bless the people of Iran. So I'm not saying that Iran hasn't been a leader in state-sponsored terrorism. Israel has too. So has America. I'm not saying that they're the good guys. But I am saying if what he is saying, a whole civilization will die tonight, then if he's going to bring that about, it is most likely through nuclear weapons. It could be through some kind of biological or chemical that I'm not up on, but modern nuclear weapons are really what is capable of doing that. And if that is the case, and they've been talking about it, and a lot of, Jewish Zionists, Mark Levin, like, yeah, let's just nuke them, make it a parking lot. That is wholesale mass murder. That is not Christian. That is not American. This is American Protestant evangelical Christian nationalists and Israeli Likud Zionist satanically possessed, condemning the entire Iranian people of the ancient civilizational nation of Persia to death, military and civilian, child, woman, and man alike, to nuclear death based on distorted Old Testament passages that are now irrelevant because of the new covenant bought by Yeshua HaMashiach, the Christ. This is worse than our nuclear strikes on Japan. Though morally wrong, they were a desperate attempt to save soldier, sailor, and Marine lives in the Pacific War human meat grinder. This is of the devil, who is a liar and a destroyer. God is merciful and life-giving and granting. All you got to, if you're not sure of discernment, and most people aren't because they haven't really opened up to the Ruach HaKodesh, the great Holy Spirit, they've never taken the time, and all the fakes that are trembling and shouting and dancing, that's not it. That's what Paul's talking about. That's what Paul is complaining about in Corinthians. Is there's too much of ego involved. But you want to know if it's of God, then is it loving? Is it patient? Is it life-giving? You want to know if it's of the devil? Is it death? Is it destruction? Is it evil? Is it demeaning? That's the beginning of discernment. You got to open up in the Christ connection to receive the great Holy Spirit from our Father in heaven beyond the walls of time and space. But before that, if you're just looking for the signs, love is patient, love is kind, love is forgiving, and God is about mercy. And this is from the Old Testament, the Torah, and Yeshua, quoting. So pray with me now that Trump comes to discernment from the Ruach HaKodesh and knows that God desires mercy and not sacrifice. And that's Hosea 6:6. God desires mercy, not sacrifice. And Yeshua, Jesus, quotes this verse in Matthew 9:13 and Matthew 12:7 to correct the Pharisees' legalism, which is often what Protestantism turns into today. Zionists who replace Old Testament misquotes instead of using Jesus' own words are of the synagogue of Satan, period. And I don't care who I'm pissing off today. So I'm going to explain this even more. So to look for confirmation of if I have interpreted what Trump has said correctly, that he's talking about wiping out a civilization forever, which means nuclear weapons, I'm looking for affirmation. It's not hard to look. IDF, Israeli Defense Force, issues chilling nationwide warning to Iranian civilians. Stay off the trains ahead of suspected rail strikes. Tuesday morning, the IDF issued a rare and highly specific warning directly to Iranian civilians, urging them to avoid all train and railway infrastructures for roughly 12 hours. Urgent warning to users and passengers of the country of Iran. Dear citizens, for the sake of your security, we kindly request that for this moment, until 2100 time frame, you refrain from using and traveling by train throughout Iran. Your presence on trains and your railways endangers your life. So what's that mean? It means they're going to hit the trains. Iran is a huge country. It's 4 times bigger than Iraq. It's mountainous. It's been around for 2,000 years. It's a civilizational nation state. So how will they hit all the trains? Does the U.S. Air Force and the Israeli Air Force have enough planes to hit all the trains? I doubt it. We're already seeing the limits of U.S. and Israeli air dominance, which they've not been able to establish. So how would they hit all the trains? Well, God forbid, nuclear weapons, which doesn't mean giant weapons. It could be small atomic demolition munitions, like in my book, Chase. That was a special forces mission. It's a backpackable nuke. It's not a vest nuke like Vance was raving about. He doesn't know what he's talking about. But it's still a nuke. Now, if it's a ground nuke, it does a lot less damage. There isn't a lot of wind, especially if there's buildings or mountains or trees around. There's not a lot of wind that spreads it. That's what Saddam's small atomic demolition munitions are. How do I know this? I was in special forces. I never did this, but I know guys who did have this mission, that they'd halo, high altitude, low opening jumps, or they'd infiltrate Germany. They're going to blow up big dams or railroads, key terrain. That's what they were talking about. So it's not necessarily nukes that are by missiles. That's what everybody thinks about. If you watch the Failsafe movie with Henry Fonda as president, where they accidentally blew up Moscow, so then they purposely blew up New York to avoid nuclear war, which didn't happen. MAD, mutually assured destruction doctrine, worked. We didn't blow each other up. Give me something that says EMP transmitted by rails, electrical lines. There are EMP weapons that are non-nuclear now, but that's not what Trump is saying. Trump is saying he's going to end a civilization. An EMP weapon cuts off all the electricity. It's even done in one of the movies with, the remake of the Sinatra. Somebody tell me, I can't think of the name right now, the team movies where they steal from the casinos. They have an EMP device, but that wouldn't end a civilization. That would save a civilization. Trump is specifically talking about ending a civilization. And again, that is wholesale mass murder. That is not Christian. That is not American. And there's no way for, if you are a Christian or a true American, for you to affirm that. Just admit that you're not, that you're a Zionist, that you're following some kind of contorted non-Christian belief and believing in Trump as some kind of Messiah like they do in Israel. And I've tried to be very patient about this, but my patience is ending with Trump's statement. So let me go over briefly the state of the war, simplified as I understand it. So the U.S. has only destroyed a third of Iran's vast missile arsenal, despite having pounded launch sites, missile silos, and military sites over the past 35 days, Reuters reported last week. So I'm doing OSINT, open source reporting. It's not Hegseth saying, hey, we've destroyed 90%, they're wiped out. Trump saying, hey, they're done, they're wiped out. But that's not what is the reality on the ground. reality on the ground is Israel, Tel Aviv, is getting pounded. Israelis are fleeing Israel. The ones that aren't fleeing Israel are in bomb shelters every night. They are not able. The Iron Dome is gone. The U.S. defenses are gone. The THAAD systems are gone. Every U.S. base in the region has been hit, maybe not destroyed. Many of the U.S. bases have been evacuated. Iran's missile and drone capability was highly underestimated by the intelligence community. Imagine that, the intelligence community underestimating something. So that is the reality, I think. On April 3rd, U.S. intelligence sources told CNN roughly half of Iran's missile launchers are still intact, as are a large percentage of their cruise missiles on the coast. Strikes on Iran's launchers may also reduce its ability to deploy missiles. Israel, countries in the Gulf, and the U.S. military personnel have continued to face regular barrages of missiles and drone strikes. Yeah, not only just Israel and the U.S. bases, but all the countries that Qatar, Saudi, UAE, that host these U.S. military bases, where the U.S. would say, yeah, we can defend you, they have not, and they're rethinking their strategic arrangements. So despite what Hegseth saying, if we pounded him, we got control, that is not the truth. It's obvious. Now, there's a high level of censorship out of Israel. There's a high level of censorship about America. In many cases, it appears that the intelligence Iran is putting out is more truthful than what is coming out of Israel and America. Not that Iran isn't lying too. They definitely are. Everybody puts out propaganda during the war, during any war, okay? But generally speaking, it seems that Iran is usually telling more truth. You know, Iran didn't start this war. Israel struck first. The U.S. struck first. You know, Iran has tried to negotiate. Every time they try to negotiate, Israel kills the negotiators. That doesn't mean that Iran hasn't committed acts of terrorism, didn't take our guys hostage, all of that. I'm not saying that didn't happen. I'm not trying to say Iran, white hat, America, black hat, but I'm trying to tell you what it looks like, what's happening. So when Hegseth says Iranian ballistic missiles and drone attacks are down 90%, their navy's wiped out, 2/3 of their production facilities are damaged or destroyed. Well, that's clearly not true. 90% of their missile and air weapon systems. A missile is anything. You know, a rock is a missile if you throw it. An arrow is a missile, depending on true definition. Have they destroyed 90%? No, clearly not. Why? Because it's all underground. They've been building underground facilities for 40 years. They knew this was coming. This is their whole strategy. And you cannot bomb a country into submission. This is what all the genius generals always think can happen. It never works. It doesn't destroy resilience. It builds resilience. And Trump recently came out and explained that the CIA had given weapons to a certain group, and the certain group was supposed to rise up along with the CIA and Mossad and MI6 Iranian agents in Iran to get the protesters to become the boots on the ground, to arm the protesters for the boots on the ground to do regime change inside Iran, in the cities. Then the weapons were supposed to come down. He didn't say who, but it's probably likely the Kurds up north. But the Kurds, which we just abandoned, our best allies in GWAT, the government war on terror, which we just abandoned when we went with the Syria new president terrorist. And so they gave the weapons. So CIA gives the weapons to probably the Kurds. He doesn't say who. I think it's the Kurds. Most people do. And Ocean's 11. Thank you, Walker. It's the movie I'm thinking of. The Ocean's 11 or 12. They have an EMP device. Thanks, guys. But anyway, Trump says we gave them the weapons and they kept them for themselves. They didn't pass them on to the Iranians. Well, surprise, surprise. I've talked about this on my Patreon, patreon.com/Jeffrey Prather, $5 level, Truth Seeker, Created News, Side Warrior, $15 level with special resources, Point Patriot, $25 a month, daily training videos. is drug deals and gun deals are difficult. And there are always guns at drug deals because there's lots of money and the drugs are worth. So I've done lots of drug deals. They're very difficult to do. The movies where they walk up and go, okay, yeah, here's the $250,000. Now, hand me a drug. It's not how it works. Because if you just hand the guy the money, he'll just take the money and shoot you and keep the drugs. Or he'll try and rip you. So it's a very difficult thing to do. And I'm not knocking the CIA guys who were trying to run this. I am sympathizing with them and empathizing with them because I've actually done this. I have given $250,000 multiple times in undercover deals. But there's things you got to do to make sure. And of course, I was a whistleblower in Fast and Furious. I'm the guy who got fired from DEA, 19 years on a job, never charged, never convicted, who out of the DEA's deal with the Sinaloa cartel for letting the Sinaloa cartel run drugs north in exchange for the Fast and Furious guns going south. Because always the dark economy is always drugs, weapons, and people, and it's all the same. So anyway, I'm not knocking the guys who try to do this, but clearly, just like with the rest of this Iran war, they kind of threw this deal together and just said, yeah, well, look at those weapons over there. It'll work. Probably thinking that just like after 9/11, when again, big intelligence failure, really from my point of view, not an intelligence failure. Really, the intelligence agencies were in on it and let it happen. The CIA, FBI, I've talked about that many times. Many other people have. Who's first goes over there? Some really brave CIA guys go with suitcases of money because we've stopped paying attention to our allies. If you want to see that, go watch Charlie Wilson's War, even though Tom Hanks is, a pedo hideout in Greece who was arrested. It's a great movie. Anyway, and buying friends. If you can't make friends, you buy friends. YouTube is currently experiencing some issues. And so they're trying to knock me off YouTube right now because they do not want what I'm saying to be put out. Like I said, I had a lot of trouble getting this out. Please like, share, and subscribe this cast. Really important. Okay? Because if Trump does what I think he's going to do, everything changes. This is a historic night. All right? So anyway, CIA goes into Afghanistan after 9/11, bags of money, buys friends because we've forgotten about our making friends. Special Forces Operational Attachment A-Team 595. There's Sergeant Vince McKellar has been on the show. There's a bottle of his horse soldier there assigned. And the rest of them go in. Triple Nickel 555 goes in. They do great rapport building. They're working with General Dostrom, who's been doing this for 40 years. And within weeks, they do regime change. They overthrow the Taliban government. But the reason they're able to overthrow the Taliban government is because they are so remote that the headquarters elements can't control them. So they just do it, which is what Green Berets do. We'll just do it. And then, of course, later on, a team goes south. B team jumps ahead of the A team, wants to get some. A JTACer, experienced JTACer who's not trained, got a new piece of equipment, didn't do a train up, which you always do before you deploy. They're trying to cut my cast off right now, too. Calls in a JADM on their own position. First casualties of GWAT are self-inflicted because of bureaucracy. So you want to read a great book on that. Swords of Lightning is actually by the Green Beret horse soldiers themselves, much better than the 12 Strong movie. But anyway, and they look up my shows on the Prather Point, jeffprather.com, where they've been on the show. Will Summers, Vince McKellar, heroes, legends, giants of the field. Anyway, they probably thought, well, that worked. We'll do it again because everybody fights the next war like the last war, except everything's changed. There's no Dostrom anymore. And we have, as we always do, hung out the Kurds, just like we hung out the Montagnards, the Hmong people as well. So when all of a sudden they rush weapons over to the Kurds and say, hey, we've abandoned you. We've let your enemies become president of Syria. But here's some weapons. Now hand them off to the Iranian citizens so we can have boots on the ground, so we can have regime change. And the Kurds, I think it's the Kurds, he doesn't say, is like, yeah, sure, thanks. I think that's what happened there. And so when regime change fails, the boots on the ground fail. The only way to ever really obtain regime change is not by aerial bombing, accepting nuclear warfare. Aerial bombing never reduces resistance. It builds it. So the Iranian people who didn't like their theocracy and who wanted Coca-Cola and jeans and rock music and were sick of Khomeini and everything, and they have parties where they're dressed up and in their miniskirts and everything, they kill Khomeini, they kill a religious leader. So what's that do? We just killed an old man with cancer. I didn't like him that much, but I sure don't like you Americans and Israelis coming over to my country and killing my spiritual leaders. And then they keep killing everybody else. So what happens in Iran is resistance builds. And then what happens is they're being bombed, and they don't have electricity and they don't have water. Well, they got to come together. And so the young people who don't like the theocracy are now hanging out with the old people who don't like the theocracy, and the resistance builds. So everything that Mossad and Israel is having Trump do is exactly the opposite of what should be done in this situation. And it's obvious, but genius generals are politicians running this stuff, and there's a Constellation staff around Trump that is controlling all this. So he doesn't hear any of this. My dear daughter was asking me, why didn't Trump know this? Well, we watched the Melania Doctrine documentary the other day. I'm like, did you see Melania talk to any common person in that document? No, they don't. The kings and nobility don't. So they don't know what's really going on. So Russia and China are giving intelligence to Iran, space-based real-time intelligence of where our stuff is. So that then really activates the underground missile systems. And missile means anything that is in the air. Could be a rock, could be a drone, could be a drone swarm, could be mini drones, could be mothership drone releasing is when I'm saying that. Iran has blocked the strait to the U.S., Israel, and allied vessels, but the rest of the Iranian strait, the Strait of Hormuz, is open. They've had to pull back the carriers. So, again, my unbiased, ruthless truth assessment as an American veteran and Christian and patriot is to give you the truth. Just like if I was still working for the 2nd Battalion, 7th Group Commander, I'd be giving him my best assessment of what's going on. Best assessment, we're losing. Just like I've said in Ukraine, CIA's war. Ukraine's been losing. What do you hear all the time? We're winning. I'm like, well, and we're supporting Nazis, as of Nazis. It's the truth. And who's sending us off Nazis' guns? Israel. Tavor bullpup rifles. And when Israel and then Trump says, we're going to kill an entire civilizational people simply because of whom they are, that's exactly what the Nazis did. That is condemning an entire people to death. That is not Christian. In no way is that Christian. Can call it American Christian Zionism, Protestant evangelism. It's not Christian. It's anti-Christic. It's of the Antichrist. It's of Satan. And if you're still thinking this, wake up. And it's not American. That's not who we are. We kill the bad guys and give chocolate to the kids. So, over Easter, Trump's Easter message was Tuesday. This is Easter. Tuesday will be Power Plant Day and Bridge Day, all wrapped up in one, Iran. There will be nothing like it. And then he says, and this is Trump. So I don't cuss on the air. although I'm fluent in soldier. Believe me, you go on the range with me, you'll hear me, okay? But open the fucking straight, you crazy bastards, or you'll be living in hell. Just watch, praise be to Allah, President Donald Trump. That's what he said. All right? So, the important thing to understand is, why did he say it? And why now did he say it? Well, here is my intelligence information assessment of why I think he said it. And again, this is on my Patreon. You can look at Truth Social. You know, the great thing about getting my patreon.com, Jeff Prather, is everything I'm saying you can look up. It's right there. You can follow the whole show. Okay, or you can do it at jeffreyprather.locals.com. All right. So he thought on Easter, I think, I assess from my analysis, from my decades in intelligence, some 42 years, and my years in special operations, that he would have a special Easter gift, but he didn't get a special Easter gift. So what likely happened was he's being told by his Constellation staff and Hegseth, we got air dominance, but we don't have air dominance. We keep getting planes shot down. We've had about 16 planes shot down, jets shot down. And of course, we always want air dominance. Okay. By the time we did the Operation Overlord, the D-Day assault, how many aircraft were the Nazis able to put up to strafe the incoming British and American and French troops? Do you know? Anybody know? Two got up. Why? Because we'd wiped them out. And the brave England people had let Hitler keep bombing London so that he wasn't bombing their airfields and their planes. And that established air dominance for them. We have not been able to establish air dominance, which is a shock. It's a strategic sea change in American power. Everything has changed, just like with the carriers. Everything has changed now in that regard. And to the credit of the Air Force, they are getting shot down now. They are in the fight, unlike in GWAT, where they're hanging back. So my kudos to my Air Force brethren. And I spent a lot of time with AFSOC, with Air Force Special Operations, privileged to train and work with AFSOC PJs quite a bit. Some of my former Warrior School employees are AFSOC, JTACs. Anyway, on the evening of April 2nd, the Iranian military released a video of them shooting down a U.S. Air Force aircraft. This was initially claimed as having occurred over the Persian Gulf, but apparently occurred near Isfahan. Wreckage corresponding to an F-15E Eagle of the 494th Tactical Fighter Squadron was recovered from a site south of Isfahan the morning of April 3rd, although the geolocation of the very barren crash site took some time. The afternoon of April 3rd, a number of U.S. Air Force HH-60s and an HC-130 refueler were spotted operating further south in western Iran over Khogyeyua and Boyer Ahmad province. And at least one A-10, which Army loves A-10s, Air Force hates them, MQ-9 Reaper, apparently an F-35 anti-aircraft battle developed in the combat search and rescue HH-60s. That's AFSOC, that's Air Force Special Operations, that's PJs and Special Tactics Squadron guys. And an A-10 were damaged, with the A-10's pilot ejecting over the Persian Gulf. The HH-60s were reported as damaged. One was photographed trailing smoke. Reports emerged at the time the pilot of the F-15 Eagle crashed near Isfahan, although this was unclear, had been rescued. But the WSO, the weapons systems officer, there's two guys in the Eagle. The pilot gets rescued pretty quick. The WSO, who's a colonel, which is kind of weird, but it can happen. Pretty senior to be doing that in the fight. But he's the one that the rescue effort was really about. So the next day passed, and eventfully, evening of April 4th, there was a report of more helicopter activity in Charmahal and Bakhtari province. Later that night, news emerged that the F-15 Echo's WSO had been rescued and that the C-130 has been abandoned and scuttled at a forward base in Isfahan area. With the withdrawal of a company-sized SOF, Special Operations Force, this is JSOC, Joint Special Operations Command. This is going to be Delta, SEAL Team 6, Rangers, Task Force 160, and that had landed in over 100 operators ostensibly had been sent to rescue one aviator. So showed 2 burned out with C-130s, several destroyed MH-6 Little Birds, SOF assault helicopters. It's when you see the Delta guys riding on the outside of. Seems reminiscent of of Operation Eagle Claw, was caught on video around. So Eagle Claw was when Iran took our embassy personnel hostage, and that was Delta Force's first mission. And what happened was when they were refueling in the desert, the Marines who were flying the CH-47s hadn't had enough NVG, night vision goggle time, because it's very fatiguing. You got to train for that. And one of the CH-47s sliced into one of the C-130s, and several personnel were killed. No Delta operators were killed. They all got out, but the Iranians were very triumphant to show the C-130s down. Now we've got more C-130s burning again in the Iranian desert. So that is a memory to them, and that's a success for them, and it's a bitter failure for us. So that analogy cannot be ignored in this. But, and congratulations to AFSOC and everybody else who did the CSAR, Combat Search and Rescue, because I was following that real closely. Because they got the pilot right away, and they got the WSO, Weapons Systems Officer, Colonel, a little bit later. There's a lot of holes in this story. The first is he travels like 100, 110 miles over rough country, mountains in like a day. Nope, that ain't happening. Nobody's that fit. Not even, a CAG guy is going to be able to do that. Certainly not somebody who's been injured or wounded in ejection. Those ejections are tough. Secondly, that a huge directed action SOF force, Special Operations Force, landed near Isfahan with assault helicopters and heavy transport aircraft to rescue one fugitive airman is nonsense. This is so true. Anybody who has experience in SOF, as I do, and JSOC, as I do, and SOCOM, as I do, that's not how you do it. That's not how you rescue one guy. Not because the U.S. Air Force won't go to extreme lengths to recover isolated personnel. It can and will, but because that's absolutely nonsensical way to accomplish the mission. Totally inappropriate force package for a mission to go in, extract a single person. The big signature, you want a little signature. So that means that task force, that SOF task force was there doing something else. And I'm not breaking anything here. This has already been talked about for days by other people. I'm explaining to you why I think Trump may actually use nuclear weapons tonight, which I don't think people have talked about. So how are the pilots actually covered? In all likelihood, exactly the way you would expect. U.S. Air Force PJs, and I've done a lot of work with the PJs. I'm really privileged. I got a PJ coin. In long-range helicopters under cover of darkness. Rescue force probably recovered the pilot from Isfahan late at night on April 2nd, 3rd. Were caught in daylight as exfiltrated, leading to the aforementioned anti-aircraft battle. On the morning of April 3rd, in high-risk refueling over Iranian territory. It was filmed by many Iranians on the ground. An A-10 trying to clear a path for the helicopters. A-10 is a slow-flying, close air support jet that the Army loves, that the Air Force hates. The WSO was likely recovered from his hide site near Isfahan by an H-860 in the quiet or deliberate operation of the night of April 4th or 5th. Only 1 or 2 birds in and out under cover of darkness. A far cry from the gung-ho stories currently being spun by the administration. So what about the soft rodeo happening at the same time? Well, why was an F-15 flying downtown to Isfahan the evening of April 2nd to begin with? Probably because there was a huge mother of all special operations direct action raid planned in Isfahan area for the night of April 4th and 5th, likely going after enriched uranium, an underground facility in the region. Now, I've talked about this. I've put this on my Patreon. Looks like an impossible mission, but CAG guys have done impossible missions before. What do I know? And the Iranian air defenses around birds and sizable force of operators via C-130. And these aren't just C-130s, regular C-130s that, paratroopers 82nd I jumped out of. These are MC C-130Js and Echoes and C's commandos that have those are special operations C-130s, by the way. They're not just simply modified C-130s. So the Air Force cashed its check on claims of air superiority, went into strike package, and lo and behold, one of the F-15s went down because of reports of the demise of Iranian air defense network has been greatly exaggerated. So the operation went ahead anyway and inserted the soft task force the evening of April 4th. I strongly suspect this force was immediately discovered by Iranian drones because we've seen the power of drones. And I'm actually on my Patreon going to talk more about that, about avoiding that. This force was immediately discovered by drones. And while they were searching for the WSO, because 5 transport aircraft, including at least 2 MC-130s, about what would be required for a bunch of little birds and a company-sized element of operators with equipment landed in the desert, 50 miles from Isfahan in the same general area where the WSO was taking cover. And so if you don't know, the little birds are disassembled. You can assemble them in about 10 minutes. Somebody on X was like, Trump announced this big secret that you can assemble a little bird. Anybody in Spec Ops knows that. It's not, do it all the time. Nothing new about that. But the story that they were there to rescue the WSO was concocted at the time to cover the disastrously failed raid. Because this was a giant. This may be the biggest raid package that JSOC has ever put together, probably is. And were logistically implausible claims that the task force had been rescued by 3 additional aircraft after 2 C-130s got stuck on the ground. So it looks like the C-130s got hit, damaged, landed, then they put them together and they blew them. That's what I think happened, which is what you should do, especially Spec Ops C-130s, MC-130Js or C's commandos. So claims that a large battle took place appeared to be simply exaggerated. Video has emerged of a single group of Iranian militia killed in a drone strike. So again, the U.S. government and Hegseth are lying to us because they don't want to say we didn't. We got the pilots, yeah, and God bless them for getting the pilot and the WSO. Awesome, but they don't want to announce that this was a failed raid. Back in the day, when Operation Eagle Claw failed, they did announce it. Now we don't even get that. But the reality is, and this is probably why Hegseth fired General George, U.S. Army Chief of Staff, and he's been firing. He just fired the Chief of Chaplains. He also fired, because I think the Chief of Chaplains was like, Jesus wouldn't condone this war. The Pope has come out and said, Jesus, this is not just war. I wrote a Substack into the sermon. This is not a just war. Likely, there's been about a dozen generals fired. Now, it may be, and this was what I was going to talk to my guest about, but he ghosted me because he was a public affairs officer, is there is a lot of dead weight among stars. Way too many stars, too few patents, lots of talkers, not doers. But the time sequence of firing, why now, is what looks strange. And why now is probably when they're talking about doing this raid to go deep into this mountain, CAG and 6 Dev going in there to get this enriched uranium. That is just an almost impossible mission to accomplish while you hold the perimeter out there from Iranian forces arriving, the Rangers, close air support that never established air dominance. And I think probably some of these generals were saying that and talking about the casualty rate. And Trump has said such, yeah, we're going to lose people, but, Mossad's telling him this is doable. Well, it didn't even get to the point of them even getting to Natanz, which is the nuclear facility. They didn't even get there. They were standing off and they were going to fly in the little birds too, probably. And then close air support is going to pound it. They go in, they blow doors. However, they're going to do that. These are not normal doors to blow like I blew. Those are going to be nuclear doors. There's a lot of demo that would be involved. Hazmat suits, which they train in. I've seen them train in that stuff. I've trained in that stuff too. But it's very difficult to do. But they didn't even get there because of the likely drone tech, low money, low tech, drone tech that discovered them very quickly. Or maybe it was the Russian intelligence based real-time intelligence, or maybe even the Chinese. But Rum Snoda says Iran definitely has 48 extra Russian fighters on their tarmacs as of last week. Well, the fighters, just like the carriers, are really irrelevant to the asymmetrical fight and attrition warfare fight and economic warfare fight that Iran is waging. But the point, thanks for the comment. Rescue operation was used as a cover for the failed attempt to extract Iran's uranium. That's exactly, in sum, what I am saying, what a lot of other peerage is saying as well. But I'm saying something else beyond that. I'm saying, so Trump never knew that he was going to have to rescue downed pilots. And God bless the U.S. Air Force pilots for getting low in the fight, because they didn't do that in GWAT. They're in the fight now. They're paying the price in their blood. So, all praise to my Air Force airmen brothers and sisters. So, because they're going down. And by the way, just to make this clear, I'm totally against this war. But if you signed up now, you took the oath, then you should not be saying, I can't go, because that's not how it works. You shouldn't have taken the oath. So I'm against it, but if I was active duty now, I would go. And I went on stuff that I thought I wasn't coming back from. Not that I'm that cool, but I'm not saying what some Dems is, hey, put in conscientious objector requests at the last minute. No, you don't get to pick that. If you sign up to support and defend the Constitution, you don't get to decide any of that. You got to go, and you got to do the best you can. And that also goes for the sailors on the Ford who have suffered so much. I really feel for you, but sabotaging your toilets is not the way to do it. But anyway, I assess that Trump thought he had no idea he'd have to rescue the pilot and the WSO, but that happened. But he did go ahead with this, I think, Mossad, Likud-based, crazy, mother of all special operations raids to go get the Iranian uranium from deep inside this mountain through this raid. And I think a lot of generals said it's not doable, or the casualty rate will be too high. But somebody convinced him, Hegseth, whoever. And when it didn't happen on Easter, that's why I think Trump puts out, open the fucking straits. Because he is really angry and frustrated. Really, who he should be frustrated with is the constellation of military advisors who say, oh, yeah, we can pull this off. Okay. And could not. So I think that's why. Then he says, "Praise be to Allah," and this is what he puts out on Easter, because he is surprised that his force package cannot do what he wants it to do. He shouldn't be surprised, because the air force package has not been able to do what he wanted it to do. The naval force package has not been able to do what he wanted it to do. And they say, talking about, you wiped out the Iranian Navy. Well, you hit a bunch of ships in port. You hit one ship that was full of cadets. It's not about ships. You haven't touched any of their small submarines inside the Strait of Hormuz. You haven't touched any of the mines inside the Strait of Hormuz. You haven't touched any of the submerged drones inside the Strait of Hormuz. So, sinking ships at port, this is not World War II. This is not Pearl Harbor. And you're trying to relive Pearl Harbor. So this is why I think Trump on Easter is dropping F-bombs and mocking Islam, because of his desperate frustration that what he has been told continually by people who are misadvising him, because they're not putting America first, they're putting Israel first. Or Israel, not even the normal Israelis at this point. Israelis are fleeing. Israelis are in bomb shelter. It's the Likud Greater Israel crowd. There's lots of protests against this stuff now in Israel. He is frustrated that his advisors keep lying to him. That's what I think. That's my new and important take. So he has then given, out of desperation, he has given this ultimatum: I will destroy your civilization. And the only way I know of to destroy a civilization is to nuke them. And that would be disastrous, because that's going to start a nuclear war. And Israel has nukes, and Russia has nukes, and China has nukes, and Turkey has nukes, and lots of other countries have nukes. And who knows what happens then? Plus, you're killing, depending upon the size of the weapon, thousands, tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, maybe even millions of innocents. So what has happened next is the U.S. struck Karg Island. Of course, Karg Island is where 90% of Iran's crude oil flows through. The same day that the bridges and railroad lines are being destroyed across the country. The IRGC warned it would deprive American allies of the region's oil and gas for years. Karg is where oil leaves Iran. Asuleya and Mashara are where the oil becomes molecules, have now both been destroyed. And molecules don't care about countries. The IEA calls this the largest supply shock in the history of the global oil market. They measured barrels. The binding constraint is not barrels, it is molecules. And molecules do not respond to the mechanisms that clear oil shocks. You cannot release strategic reserves of polypropylene because no country has ever stockpiled it. So oil makes polypropylene, oil makes plastics, lots of stuff. So you get your meat from the market wrapped in plastic, it's from oil. You can watch Landman, learn about that. You cannot release strategic reserves of polypropylene because the country has never stockpiled it. Can't substitute U.S. ethane crackers because ethane produces ethylene, but not polypropylene, not aromatics, not butadiene. This is beyond me. And that is quantum chemistry, not economics. You cannot wait for a ceasefire because the Dow CEO said last week that even after the strait reopens, petrochemicals will be the last in the transit queue behind oil, gas, and fertilizer, and the heat exchanges required to rebuild the damaged facilities. This is what Michael Yon's always talking about, is war is followed by disease and famine. That is where we are heading. So what happened today at Karg compounds the crisis in a way nobody is modeling. The destruction of upstream crude export capacity eliminates the revenue Iran would need to fund petrochemical reconstruction, eliminates the feedstock that would eventually flow to whatever crackers survive. The war is destroying the input and output simultaneously. there is no historical precedent for the concurrent annihilation of a nation's crude export terminal, its petrochemical processing capacity, its steel production bases, and its transport infrastructure in the same 5-week campaign. The closest analog is Farben after 1945, and the full restoration of integrated chemical ecosystems required over a decade after World War II to get this stuff going. The IRGC's own threat confirms the duration thesis. They said years, not months. The industry assessment confirms it, so everybody's agreeing. And the Iran war will debilitate petrochemicals for the rest of 2026. That's a very optimistic assessment. This is going to probably go on for a decade. So the economic war is escalating, and the United States is escalating it. And Iran then countered and escalated in kind. And Iran just hit Jubail, industrial city, Saudi Arabia's largest petrochemical complex. The zone produces 60 million tons of petrochemicals a year, 6 to 8% of everything the world makes. This is the chemical backbone of modern civilization. So Dow Chemical's Sadara complex, 26 production units already suspended months ago. They've already evacuated this. Saudi Aramco paid $70 billion for their stake in SABIC. That investment is burning now. 85% of Saudi Arabia's non-oil exports come from this one zone. Iran didn't hit a refinery. They hit the feedstock that becomes your plastic, your fertilizer, your packaging, your medical supplies. Shortages coming. Again, after the show goes out, the email, click on the Jace link to get discounts. Stock up on your meds, your prescription meds. You're not watching a war. You're watching two countries racing to see who can destroy the other's economy first, while you pay $4 a gallon to watch. That's what's happening. So I see no intelligence information analyzed that doesn't show that Trump is assessing a nuclear strike on Iran, because so they're going after Kharg Island, so it doesn't matter. I mean, Kharg Island will not be that important if he strikes Iran with nuclear weapons, and Iran is striking back in kind. Of course, again, this is unknown territory. This is very dangerous. Let's not forget what the U.S. and Great Britain did in World War II during the bombing of Germany and Dresden. Yeah, not forgetting that. The Dresden firebombing was worse than Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It's not what I'm saying. It's not what I'm talking about at all. Try and follow what I'm saying here, okay? It's really important. Bibi went so far as to disown Israel's involvement in the aggression last week, describing it as Israeli a U.S. operation to a U.S. only. Yeah, a little late for that as well. So just taking a look at comments here because I want to answer those. One pilot has been taken prisoner. Iran reached out to the mother. So I've seen those POW reports. Some of them look real authentic, but it does not seem to jive. So I am not. There's a lot of stuff I'm not reporting right now because I can't assess it or I assess it negatively. Iran is lying about stuff too, I think. But it's also interesting to note that gunmen attempted to storm the Israeli consulate in Istanbul terror attack. Israel said, we appreciate Turkish security forces' swift action in thwarting the attack. So 3 guys with long guns attacked the Israeli embassy in Istanbul. And again, the question becomes, why now? Well, Turkey has been trying to act as an intermediary between Iran and the U.S. And so if these are ISIS fighters, as most intelligence is indicating, or this is a Mossad false flag operation, why now is, again, to push Turkey into one point of view. Timing is everything. The questions are who and why now. The answers, respectively, are unknown and to shift the balance of power on the eves of Trump's potential nuclear strike. So that's what I think is happening. And that's what I wanted to go over in detail with you. And so, again, to sum up, I think Trump's secret raid to get the uranium failed. They got the pilots, which is great. I don't think Iran has POWs, U.S. POWs, prisoners of war. But the raid failed. They didn't even get to the mountain, much less get inside the mountain. I think he was very frustrated with that. I think that's why he drops an F-bomb on Easter. And I think that's why he is now threatening Iran with a civilizational destruction, which means he is going to nuke Iran. And I think he's being fed this by Israeli Zionists and American Christian Zionists. It is, I mean, it's hard to believe, but I'm taking this very seriously. I hear, Trump says all kinds of stuff all the time. And, I basically like Trump. I voted for Trump. He's always bragging. And that's fine. That's blowhard. But what he's saying now seems to resonate. And I'm assessing this seriously. I took this so seriously again that I got my family together. We got on our knees and prayed for Trump to receive discernment from the great Holy Spirit. So that's what I'm going to do now. I pray before every show. I pray on Sunday. If you're joining the Christ Chaplaincy, I'm going to ask you to pray with me now. So take a deep breath in. Exhale. Open your hands up. Abun Devashmaya, Father in heaven. I ask you, as we pray to you in the Shem of Yeshua Mashiach, in the connection of the Christ, to send the great Holy Spirit, the Ruach Kadesh, to President Trump to give him discernment and not use nuclear or weapons of mass destruction against the Iranian people, to understand that you desire mercy and not sacrifice, and that Yeshua showed us the way of that. Please. And I'm asking all of you to pray with me and continue to pray so that we intercede and change his mind. And we have been able to do that before. Amen. We have been very successful. When we put out prayer requests, miracles have happened many times. So this can happen, and I don't see any other thing that can happen right now. Everything else is too late than this. So is he forgetting about the Christians in Iran? Yeah, he's forgetting about the Christians in Iran. The American Christian Zionists are not really Christians. Period. I'm going to just say that. I've been trying to get along with some of them. You're welcome for the great prayer. How is TA disseminating strategy? Well, this is kind of beyond TA at this moment. TA has been working operation to expose Zionism very successfully, but this is a last-ditch effort on my part from what's going on. Amen. So I'll wrap up. And again, if you got questions or comments here, put them in, and I will try and answer them. I don't see anybody actually on X, although there's a lot. There's a lot on X, and I do see a good number on Rumble as well. Please like, share, and subscribe. But I still get these emails from these ever Trumpers, and I got one from somebody recently that was questioning my patriotism, which I really find insulting because I'm a veteran. And I wonder if that person is, because I've put my life on the line for this country, and questioning me as a Christian. And again, I'm a very dedicated Christian, all simply because they think I should not trash Trump or criticize Trump. So I'm not trashing him. I'm criticizing him. He works for me. We elected him. We elected him because he said he was going to do certain things. He's not doing certain things. He's doing other things than what we asked him for. And so that's totally legitimate. And when you get to the point where you can't criticize a man, a fallen human nature man, you're elevating him to God. Trump is not my Messiah. He is simply my president. I am totally within my rights, and I'm respectfully criticizing him. I'm not cussing him. I'm not making fun of him. I'm pointing things out clearly all the time. So I resent your Lang source at Proton. I resent your implications about my patriotism and my Christianity. And, I wonder about yours. Although I don't know, because only heaven knows. I don't know who's getting into heaven. I don't know if I'm getting into heaven. I certainly got plenty of my sins. But when because this is what you were doing, all you guys who say I'm trashing Trump and I can't criticize Trump and it's got to be Trump's just a man. That's all he is, a man. He's done a lot of good things. I'm glad he's in there. He's 100 times better than Biden. He's the best president we've had in a long time. But I can still criticize him. It's my right. As an American, it's my duty as a Christian when he talks about mass murdering an entire ancient biblical civilization, because Persia is in Scripture, by the way. And I can criticize him because there's zero arrests, zero convictions, zero indictments, zero retraction of warp speed, no vaccines withdrawn. Instead, dinners with Gates and Borla, massive vaccine deaths and injuries not prosecuted. FDA, CDC, Big Pharma not held accountable for fraud and abuse. Fauci walks free, while charges presented to DOJ ignored. No wars ended, but 2 more still funded. 3 wars started. Glyphosate protections. Doge closed down. Nothing done about the January 6th or vote fraud or Russiagate. Epstein files limited release. Nothing done except protecting pedophiles and Satanists. Investigation into Charles Kirk's blocked or stopped. AutoPen never actually investigated and dealt with. 2020 election fraud. Electronic voting machines flipped. Voters never prosecuted. As a result, voting fraud continues. Deep state sellouts being brought in. Cocaine in White House never investigated. NGOs behind an immigrant invasion still operating. Deportation of extra 30 million illegal aliens who invaded the U.S. during 2020 to 2024. Coup d'etat barely touched. None of the millions of military-age Chinese brought in. I can criticize my president about that. He is my president, not my Messiah. If you don't think you can criticize him, you're elevating him to the position of Messiah. Christ is my Messiah. So please stop sending me these emails. So if you may be an ever-Trumper cultist, if you are pro-life and anti-abortion, but fine with Trump covering up the Epstein-class mass kidnapping, rape, torture, murder, and cannibalism of children. You may be an ever-Trumper cultist if you're enraged by Iranian protesters killed by the Revolutionary Guard, but fine with Israel genociding Gaza civilians, women, and children. You may be an ever-Trumper cultist if you are fine with American troops dying for Gaza greater Israel expansion while Israeli soldiers don't join them. You may be an ever-Trumper cultist if you are against LGBT and trannies, but are fine with furries and preteen pageants at Mar-a-Lago. You may be an ever-Trumpist cultist if you are against the jab, but fine with Trump celebrating the COVID psyop and bioweapon democide warp speed. You may be an ever-Trumper cultist if you're furious with the FBI, but fine with Trump backing FISA and a new giant FBI headquarters bigger than the Pentagon. You may be an ever-Trumper cultist if Trump has done many good works, stopping illegal immigration, freeing January 6th political prisoners, warring on the cartels, and tariffing China. I support all those. I salute him for all that and more. But he's just a man. He's not the Messiah. Fallible and with a fallen human nature. Don't misplace your belief in Trump over faith in Yeshua. Trump is not the answer. God is. To make America great again, we must be good. To be good, we must be godly. God has a plan. Us.